Hello and welcome to the Eco-Capitalist. I'm your host, Steven Tyler Rosenberg, and I hope that everybody's having a green day so far.
And I'm John Hoffner, the green guy, advocating for a world powered by renewable energy.
This is a dual podcast and VCast where we educate our audience on the most important topics related to business and sustainability for the future generations. Our goal is to solve this big problem by combining the environmental side of sustainability as well as the real-world business practicality side. We are giving both people and industry a voice to solve this problem together. There will be no one group or individual that can solve this alone, which is why we are going to try and get all sides of the story and propose how to make it work.
Today we're focusing on solar energy, and in particular a guest, David Dixon from Native. David, tell me a little bit about you before we get into your company and how you got into this solar energy world.
Sure, John. Thanks for having me on the show. So it's funny. I have a picture of myself in junior high school, which is I think where I got the idea that I wanted to be involved in solar. It involved a report that I had to do in 7th grade for a science fair on energy sources. And of course, back then, all of the material that I referenced all came out of encyclopedias. So this was a while back. But at that time, I started to kind of see or be exposed to solar energy, wind energy, tidal energy. And I think that is where I kind of had that thing in the back of my brain that said that this is something I want to get involved with. So ever since that time frame, that's been something that I've been interested in. And through school, I ended up going through some engineering curriculums and, mechanical engineering and energy sources. There was definitely some tie-ins there. And I ended up in Texas back in 1998. Started working in semiconductor industry after I got out of grad school here at UT. But I always had that thing in the back of my brain regarding getting involved with energy. In fact, I had come to grad school here to work on a solar project with a professor. And so I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and it wasn't until about the mid 2006-07 where the economics of solar all of a sudden started to come out from looking at solar from payback period. It came to a point where
payback period?
Yeah, what's a payback? Solar never had one, right? Back it was like, well, you'll die before you see a return on investment. Seriously, I mean,
that's how it was.
Yeah, in 1998, it was hard coming out of school to really see that, and so it was like, well, how do I, as I had environmental bent and I'd been interested in this, but how do I pitch that when you've got to really be pulling for folks that are, environmentally conscious only as your market segment. And it got to a point where all of a sudden there's a 20-year payback on this. It actually, in your lifetime, you'll see a payback. And then 2 years later, it was 16 years. Then it was 13 years. And all of a sudden, you start to get down to, realistic paybacks that are rivaling what you are going to earn in the stock market, or they're much better than what you'll earn on bonds or T-bills or your checking account. You're nothing on that, right? So, when the economics got more favorable, it became like all of a sudden you could see, wow,
I'm going to jump into this. You're going to get into this business then.
Yeah, well, it just, it's something I've always wanted to do, but it's hard to, you want to make sure there's a market there for it. Now there's always been a market, but that market's wasn't big enough when you're talking about.
So
early
what was
adopters.
the switch for you? Like, was there a moment in time where you feel like you were like, okay, like now the market's right, now this is right, I'm doing it?
Yeah, it's funny. So I got out of grad school in 2000, and at that point I was looking around, and there were probably 4 solar companies in town, and I didn't really. I kind of looked into it a little bit. There wasn't much opportunity at that time. That's when I jumped into semiconductor. But then, 8 years into that, the market had changed dramatically. Prices have been coming down on modules.
Yeah.
And the city of Austin had developed through Austin Energy developed a rebate program that helped really kickstart the market here locally in I think 2004ish was when that happened. So by the time 2008 rolled around, or 2007 really, you had 3 or 4 years of momentum in that program. You're seeing this ridiculously high growth rates of that market. Even though they're small numbers, they were still growing so rapidly that it's like, okay, the opportunity is
there.
It's now.
Yeah, I mean, there was almost in 2007 an inflection point in a lot of different industries. That's when cell phones started taking off, and really the cell manufacturers really started to escalate in the number of manufacturers and the price just dropping. So 2007 was almost like the perfect time. And that's about when you started, it sounds like.
Yeah, well, I mean, by the time we actually kind of pulled the trigger on the company, getting it going, it was 2008. Of course, everything else, the rest of the economy was tanking. It wasn't the greatest time to quit a good job, but
that's true.
It was kind of like the dream was crystallized, and it was time to go.
Well, good. So here, 8 years later, Native is a player.
Yeah.
So tell us what in that time period there was a lot of change. What do you think is also driving people to do solar? I mean, it's economics, but do you think there's still just a lot of people that do it for the goodwill of it, for the good feeling? I want to be green, or is it now fully economical and people do it, for that reason?
Well, I think it's a combination of both. I mean, certainly a lot of the early adopters in the early 2000s, were frankly, a lot of wealthy folks that were green-minded, and they could afford solar because again, it wasn't really a great economic decision or investment necessarily, especially over 5 or 10 years. But as prices have come down, and they've come down, I don't have the statistics, but when I got there about 35% of the total cost of where it was in 2008.
Yeah, it's just phenomenal. Yeah.
So you've gotten some of the drivers are, the cost coming down tremendously. You've got financing options. When we started in the business, no one wanted to finance a solar system. That wasn't really seen as an asset that you could collateralize. And now we've got all kinds of financing options. As big banks have gotten around. I mean, there's such a global kind of turn on energy production to renewable sources, solar. It's bankable now.
What does that mean? It's bankable.
Well, you see a lot of the big banks that actually are investing in projects. And we're seeing a lot of different investment companies and groups that are funding personal solar investments. So again, if now I can talk to somebody and offer them a 5 to 25 year loan product.
That's excellent.
And to a point where you can trade in your $100 utility bill for a $92 loan payment. So you can be pretty much cash flow positive on day one in many situations, just because the economics with the low cost of solar systems relative to where they were, plus having a long-term financing option.
That would get me up in the morning every day.
I tell you.
So do you have like a really good success story you could share, like without saying the person's name? Like, is there a good story of like when that financing or something along those lines where someone really?
Let me think in particular.
If you don't have an example.
Yeah, I can't think of a personal. I know we've got a lot of folks. So just as a stat, I would say 4 years ago we were just starting to see some of the financing products come to the market, and we probably did 5 or less than 10% of our jobs were financed, and I think now we're probably pushing 50% of jobs in finance, and so which is great.
See, that's a great.
Yeah, because a big even when solar with the price coming down, you still have folks that have to throw down $5,000, $6,000 or $7,000 up front, and not everyone can do that. So having that way to finance that, all of a sudden that changes everything.
It changes the whole game.
Yeah, and you can make it about cash flow and get cash flow positive right off the bat.
And it's not about payback. It's about then your positive cash flow from day one.
You got to pay for electricity anyway. Yeah. You can pay the loan payment that's less than your utility bill.
Yeah, that's
exciting.
Huge difference.
Yeah.
So we're at a point where let's say it's cost effective enough for the average citizen to do it. What about in the future? Let's say 10 years, 20 years. Do you see it where it's going to be an actual commodity? I mean, we're almost to that point of a commodity. The modules have been, I think, sort of commoditized because they're now as low as 30 to 40 cents per watt. And years ago they were $3 or $4. But where it becomes like an appliance, like your air conditioner. It becomes part of the house. It's a standard product. When will that happen, if ever?
Well, I mean, yeah, that's a good question. I think we're at a point right now where we're still seeing, double-digit growth rates. I saw a stat the other day that said since the last couple of years, it was 2% of all jobs created in America were in the solar industry.
Wow.
1 out of 50. 1 out of 53, I think is the number.
Not as opposed to coal jobs, right?
Well, yeah, right. So, and it's somewhat viral. We're seeing, a lot of times once you get solar in the neighborhoods, it gets neighbors excited about it.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing, these production home builders where it's not even an option. It's standard on their homes. And these are first-time home buyers that are getting solar standard. So that's going to be the expectation moving forward, is that they're going to expect to have low energy bills. And solar is not, it's not a strange thing. They're going to be familiar with it. So it's a game changer when you have people that are already educated about your product. So I do see it still getting less expensive, still becoming more of a commodity. However, there's also, one thing we're getting a lot of questions about right now is storage.
Yes.
People want batteries. Kind of the Elon Musk Tesla thing, where
Elon Musk.
And so he's good at getting folks excited about things. He's
the Powerwall.
We also wanted to take a second and thank Tesla for being our number one sponsor of this podcast. Thank you so much, Elon, for your generous funding of this amazing podcast.
Yeah, so it's funny. So right now, storage, there's, again, from a financial standpoint, there's not a real argument in these markets in Texas to use storage, but there's market signals given by utility companies in other markets like in California and Hawaii where that makes sense. But really, right now, it's a little bit, I think, a little premature for the majority of folks to install storage. So, however, I think in probably 5 to 7 years, we'll be selling solar in nearly every system.
It'll come with a battery.
Yeah, because I think we're going to start to see the utilities, reacting to these assets and understanding that, they can start. We're already seeing, rate structure starting to get a little more complicated, right? Instead of paying a flat rate for energy anytime during the day. That's not the reality of what their utilities are dealing with. They're buying electricity, which is fluctuating every 15 minutes, to the point where you can have, it can cost 100 times more than it does, it could cost 100 times more at 4 p.m. than it does at 10 a.m. And yet they're passing along this flat rate. So, it makes sense that at some point in time, they're going to figure out a way to, if they're buying it expensive, they're going to charge you more. If they're buying it less expensive, they're going to charge you less. And we're seeing some utilities that are starting to mess with those models here in Texas.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I am really excited about that future of having. Let's talk about one complex of houses, and everybody has a 5 kilowatt storage system and a 5 kilowatt PV system, solar system, and then you have all the software that makes them all talk together, and that you really don't even have to own your system. It becomes a virtual system, and I know they're working on one down in Australia there, where they put together a grant where they're doing a whole neighborhood like that, and it becomes kind of like the way computer storage is now, where you've got this virtual cloud, and it's all shared.
Yeah,
so.
I think you look at the internet as a distributed network resource, and I think energy is heading that way. We're going to have, like you said, all the neighborhood, and you've got all these generators and all these storage points, and you can just be, you need someone that's got to be able to manage that system. So the utility is still going to have to play. Someone's got to be the broker of all those transactions. But at the end of the day, that is going to be the most cost-effective way, generating electricity where you need it, storing it where you need it, using it when you need it, as opposed to, the way we do things now with these big generators all over the grid that there's no storage really on the grid. Everything is generated in real time as it's needed. So It's pretty crazy, So you have to have.
How much is wasted?
Well, it's wasted, and just you have to have a lot of generators on standby. So you gotta, these guys are it's costing them money to keep those things ready to go. They may not need it, but 10 or 12 or 15 hours a year.
Right.
But and then electricity prices get high, and they're high enough to pull them into the market. But it just seems like this distributed way it's where things are going. And that's kind of where the technology is pushing. So
right. So distributed. Maybe go a little bit deeper in what distributed versus the central power plant. So when you say we always talk about distributed energy, distributed generation.
So central plant, say in Austin we have like Fayette, a big coal plant east of town, where you can get over a gigawatt of generation. Compare that to a 5 kilowatt system on your home, but you might have. Oh boy, did some quick math. 200 of those, right? And that equals a gigawatt of peak generation. But they would be in a neighborhood or several neighborhoods. I think I did my math wrong there.
Yeah, that's
2,000. 2,000 5
Yeah.
kilowatt system. So it would be lots of homes. But still, there's so much rooftop potential here in Austin.
That is
easily,
wasted.
it's way more than a gigawatt. So. There's a lot of power that can be produced locally and then and stored as needed.
And in the sense maybe you can talk a little bit about reliability on that too. The reliability of 2,000 generators and maybe one goes down, a little house, the whole system doesn't go down. Whereas if you have Fayette or the South Texas Nuclear Project, if it goes down, you've lost almost all your system.
Huge portion of your of your generating capacity. Yeah, and there's a lot of angles here.
Sorry, so are you saying that batteries are the way to go? Like that's
the
future?
There'll be storage, right? So storage can be batteries that are maybe at the point of at someone's home.
Okay.
It could be a hot water tank. You can use that as a battery. That's basically a thermal battery. It could be if I've got too much energy and I can't use it right now and it's summertime, maybe I cool my house down an extra 3 degrees. There's ways you can tie in. There's also controls, right? There's got to be some brains to tie in all these things, but you can start controlling loads in your home to help use or shed load to help match how you're generating or how you're storing that energy. So just imagine, you've got your solar system producing energy. You're not home, and so you've got excess, and so you have some kind of decision making process. It says, well, are my batteries full? Well, no. Okay, fill up the batteries. Okay, the batteries are full. Now what? Well, what's my hot water temp? My hot water tank, is it? It can be from 120 to 150. I got this whole range of. Well, heat up the water tank for a little bit. Let's put some energy there. We can use it later. Or maybe what's the temperature in the home? Can I cool the home down a few degrees? Yeah, you're at the top of your set point. You can cool down from 78 to 76 because people come home at 5 o'clock and they're going to turn down anyway. We already know the behavior.
You already know. You already have the data.
There's so much stuff. And then, like you said, John, if you have a situation where maybe now you're part of maybe you've set up a microgrid within a community. And so now all these things are networked together. And well, your batteries are full, but the Joneses batteries are half empty. Let's throw it over there.
Love it.
There's so much potential for how you can.
Computers can do all that now.
It's all doable now. It's just a matter of again, there being, getting the grid with enough hardware and sensors on it to do this, getting, prices to come down to where that stuff becomes affordable, getting market signals, getting utilities to basically, kind of send signals out there, incentivize people to potentially, start building out that infrastructure, because assumedly some of this infrastructure is going to be owned by consumers, because it's a lot of money in aggregate to do all these things, but you can see where homes are going to get smarter, and storage and generation is going to absolutely be part of
that's the direction we're heading.
Yeah.
No matter what, the Nest and these are thinking.
These aren't. I'm not giving you anything that's far fetched.
No.
This is stuff it's coming. It's coming.
Yeah,
all the signs point to this.
Seriously, I don't.
Well, it's hard. A lot of folks, you turn on your light switches and you kind of just take it for granted. Energy's there, and a lot of folks, it's just like that's what they're thinking about.
Yeah, they don't think they're not like us energy nerds that think about it all day long and think about kilowatt hours. A lot of people still want to get their bill at the beginning of or at the end of the month, pay it, and then move on. But there's also, I think, more people that are getting interested in following it and all these signals, and you can do stuff on your iPhone that you couldn't do with your energy on your house, and it's becoming where it's more part of your daily
definitely.
life.
When people get solar, a lot of times we talk to folks, it's like they just start looking at the energy bills. They start looking and they say, "Oh, look, I have negative $6 this month," or
the meter went backwards.
Yeah, and of course now all these solar systems have metering capabilities, and we also offer circuit monitoring, so you can see how much. So now you can start looking at your behavior and be like, "Gosh, why is it? Oh, you know what? We've been leaving on our outside lights, all month. They're on during the day." Yeah, so you can, if you monitor it, like online. You don't know what you don't know, right? So until you, with an online platform. So basically, we have a system that you can install. We install into the breaker panel. You're looking at all the loads that go to all different breakers. So you can see what your refrigerator is pulling, or what your lights are, your pool pump, whatever you have. And I think when you start to analyze that data and say, geez, my pool pump cost me $36 this month. Is there a better solution than that?
Oh.
And sure enough,
it's like a game though. You could almost turn it into an online game.
You can.
Who can save the most this
month?
Well,
it's funny.
Move this around here. It's a puzzle.
We've talked to folks about, and we haven't been able to do anything with it, but how cool would it be to get, have this neighborhood against this neighborhood, or this person
similar
to what you're doing. But it's funny when you
for zero waste.
Yeah, you could easily do that.
People love competition.
That's right.
They love competition,
right.
And every Sunday, it's announced or whatever, and you have those different layers. How unfeasible is that?
It's not. It's just a matter of it's being able to collect that data, baseline and analyze. That's what it is, right? It's the big data thing. It's getting all this information that you can then start doing something like this, where you can say, let's see who can save more energy this month compared to their baseline, or who's. There's a lot of possibilities. It's fascinating.
It is. I had one UT professor say that if you think about it, electricity is the only commodity that you buy that you get a bill at the end of the month and you have no idea what you did in the middle of that month.
That's right.
And just think about if you went into your grocery store and you just put everything on there and went through and okay, we'll send you the bill at the end of the month. You go in there once, you go in another time, 3 times during that month, and then but you have no idea how much you spent. And that's really the way electricity has been sold up to this point.
That's right.
It's the exact same way in waste.
That's right.
In recycling. You just get a garbage bill, whether you throw away, one business card a month, or whether you throw away 1 million pounds, as long as it fits in that container.
Right. Yeah.
I have no idea.
You should be incentivized.
So and again with the circuit monitoring, all of a sudden you can look at your bill and it's broken down into 15 buckets. So you know where your money's going, and it affects behavior. You can save money just by knowing where your money's going.
That's good.
So it's.
Well, David, tell us about Native a little bit more. In the day in life of David Dixon at Native, what do you guys specialize in? And
okay, so for me personally, I'm the business development manager on the residential and commercial solar side of Native. Native also is a net zero energy home builder. So we are building homes kind of around within about 60-90 miles of the Austin area that are net zero energy, and all the water is rainwater, so for all the potable water in the home. So it's almost like a zero resource home.
For the 3 people out there that don't know what net energy is, maybe just like
right. So for net zero energy, basically what we're saying is that all the energy that home consumes over the course of a year, it will generate itself. So they're still tied to the grid. We're still kind of, we still use the grid as our battery, but we pull from the grid as we need it. And we push back extra that we don't need, and we ended up with at the end of the year, a net zero energy home. So that's the definition of that. And it's not just about putting a ton of solar on it. You want to design it smart, make it a nice tight thermal envelope. We use a lot of sustainable products in our homes, and again, they're also the water that we're using is being just captured from the rooftop, better put into we use 20,000-30,000 or more gallon rainwater tanks.
Wow, those are big tanks.
Really?
Yeah.
It's a big tank. And
Big tanks.
I've heard some people say that during that drought period that had rainwater collection, they were out there taking their showers and having a great time, and everybody in Austin was restricted.
Well, it's funny. We have a few folks who are really analytical, and they monitor their tank levels. And this one guy we built a home for, I think in 2009. So you got through all those drought years, 10 and 11 and 12, and he never. I think he got down to around 35% or something, but he never got to the red.
Fantastic,
as it were. So it was just surprising. But even when it doesn't rain here, but when it rains, it rains.
Yeah,
we get these huge rain events that just can
fill it up,
put thousands of gallons into it. It's amazing.
A couple inches of rain on your roof is an amazing amount into your tank.
It is. It's thousands of gallons potentially.
Yeah. Well, David, how would somebody get in touch with Native, and what like somebody calls you up? What do? You go out and do surveys, or the first step?
First step. First step for us on the solar side is just to talk to the client to see, why they're interested in solar. If they own their home, we can pull up their home on Google Earth or a similar program and kind of look and see if there's any shading issues, or kind of talk to their roof condition. We'll just kind of try to vet out that client's solar access and how feasible it is to put it on their roof, or we do ground mounts as well. So we'll kind of that initial conversation, then we'll get some electricity bills. So when looking at sizing a system, it's funny that one of the most common questions you get when you're in the solar industry is, okay, I got 2,000 square foot house. How much solar do I need?
Right.
So
that's not enough. Not quite enough data.
Yeah, it's not enough. So we look at basically, how much space do you have to install solar? That's one parameter.
Mm-hmm.
The other parameter is what is your energy bill? So until we kind of see the energy bills. That's going to give us, two really good, kind of metric or two variables that help kind of pin down the right system size for you. It's funny though, a lot of the way the utilities operate is they don't want to see a lot of excess energy being fed onto the grid. So a lot of times they don't value that energy at the same rate that they value it if you size the system smaller. So we tend to size the systems to be, to not exceed what a customer would need to use in a year.
No, because the net billing, I guess in Austin, anything that goes extra into the grid, are you allowed now to carry it over to the next month?
Yeah, so Austin Energy does have a kind of unique structure. I won't get into details too much, but to say that there's a rebate tied to the money, and they do have some parameters on the sizing, on how you can size that system. So at the end of the day, though, as a rule of thumb, we generally just, the max size is usually what your energy use is or your anticipated energy use. Obviously, if you're going to add 2 Teslas and you're going to add, an addition on the home, and all of a sudden now your energy loads go way up, we can size obviously bigger systems.
Mm-hmm.
So.
All right. Well, so how do people find you on the internet or?
Yeah, our website is buildnative.com. And from there, we've got intake forms if you're interested in construction or solar. Mm-hmm. We've got different forms there as well.
What about social media? Are you guys involved in?
Yeah, we're on. We have a Facebook page as well. We have Facebook, and we've got LinkedIn and Twitter and Instagram. I'm at the point where I'm old enough to know about Facebook, but not old enough about the rest of them. So,
congratulations! Wow, yeah, that's good.
So we're in all the channels, but yeah.
Okay.
And now you're on podcast.
And now I'm on podcast. What's next?
What a treat!
Well, here's your opportunity for the question of the week for our listeners.
Question of the week. All right, so thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. My name is David Dixon again. I'm with Native, Net Zero Energy Home Builder, solar installer. And you can find us at buildnative.com. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. And my question to the audience is, where do you go for your information about solar? Is it social media platforms? If so, which ones? Is it trade shows? Is it organizations like Solar Austin, like Cleantex? I mean, where do you guys go to get information? Really interested to know where we should be targeting you folks. So thank you for having me.
Thank
you
so
you,
much
David.
for being here. Nice to meet you. Thank you guys so much for listening to the Eco Capitalist today, and I hope you found value in the conversation. Make sure that you join in on the conversation with us before next week. Thank you so much, and as always, have a green day.